Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode in my long-lasting series on the lore of the Witcher world. In the last video we looked at the Ketriana Plague, but today we're going to be taking a look at the character Vesemir, who I'm sure is somebody who needs no introduction as he's featured in the games and the books. And before we get into this, I just want to explain that the video won't be structured in any particular way in terms of, going from his early years all the way up to his later ones, mainly because it doesn't really work as well when I do that. So instead this is going to be a lot of facts and a lot of things we know about him, and well, they can be pasted together in a number of different ways, but I will tell you from which point of his life they're all from. So the old Witcher is said to be somewhere between 300 to 400 years old. In that time he has amassed a grand and impressive knowledge of monsters. From dragonids to insectoids to ghouls, he knows and understands the habits and needs of many species, whether the intent is to kill or to save them. Needless to say that if he is indeed an elder Witcher, the stories of monster-slaying contracts and strange twisted things he may have seen must be astronomical, and in such an expansive career he also knows how to handle a sword as well as his tongue, understanding when to retreat and when to attack verbally or even physically. Undoubtedly, he is one of the wisest witches to ever walk the Northern Kingdoms, and although not as famed as Geralt, is known well enough by many, mainly for his skills with both silver and steel blades. The story of Vesemir in his early years is something we all know very little about, which is strange since he has quite literally centuries and centuries worth of tales. Another something that has never been uncovered is how Vesemir became a Witcher. As many of you know, children can be selected and trained to become witches in a variety of different ways, but in this case with no information on Vesemir himself. But he may very well have been subjugated to the Law of Surprise, or an orphan adopted into the school itself. That school of course being the Witcher School of the Wolf, that's base is Kaer Morhen, in which some say that Vesemir is even older than the fortress itself. As to how he became so skilled with a blade, or as to who trained him, it is again unknown, but we can only assume that it is down to practice both in the yard and in the field, those skills leading to him being given a very important role. Vesemir became the swordmaster and instructor at Kaer Morhen for many years, training young witches in the art of swordplay, Geralt, Leo, Eskel and Lambert all included. As for any personal love life the Witcher may have had, there's mention of him being involved with a countess during the younger years of his life in 1234. He recalls how there were love letters, how he jumped from a window in order to flee from the lady's father, leaving behind his Witcher Gambeson in the process. They sadly never saw each other again, as the woman's father put an arrest warrant on Vesemir's head and quickly married her off to someone more befitting. Other than that, there's not much else to mention. Like most witches from the School of the Wolf, Vesemir heads outwards into the world to take on contracts during springtime. He spends the remaining winter at Kaer Morhen itself, reminiscing about old times and insisting that the fortress be repaired and upkept. Winter is downtime for the monster hunters, and they all enjoy each other's company by the heat of the hearth and with the warmth of a drink. Now there are one or two plot holes that exist as to how much Vesemir actually knew about Witcher mutations. I should just quickly say that supposedly all witches understand the ingredients that go into the trial of the grasses, but only a few ever knew the process that was involved to actually fully mutate a boy to a Witcher. There are two different stories when it comes to Vesemir, the first one being that he never knew enough to mutate or create more witches, and the second being he never wanted to use the mutations again since the death toll was too great and he didn't want to have to watch more children die. The only other living person who supposedly knows enough to mutate further humans into witches would be the sorceress Yennefer. She uncovered many witcher secrets through her research and since then has kept them all to herself for various different reasons. Over his career, he had seen the rise and indeed the fall of the Witchers, being the only surviving member during the first attack at Kaer Morhen, that attack being the assault made by the Fanatics. He was left for dead among the corpses of his fellow Witchers and the attackers who had sieged the stronghold. Despite this, he still stayed true to his path and contented in his work. He was a legendary Witcher and warrior, saying once that no Witcher had ever died in his own bed, and he was adamant not to be the first. So that's about everything that we generally know on the character Vesemir, and I understand that I haven't brought you up to date inside of what happens in the third game, but I'd like to keep that for anybody who is actually still going to play the game. It's really fun looking into Vesemir's character because he had one of those kind of very mysterious lives, considering that there is like 400 years worth of information, but we know so little. It's kind of sad as well because I was really hoping that there would be more about him and that there would be more kind of stories about where he was and the different lands he's seen and everything, because as you can imagine, he's seen a lot of evolutionary process in terms of government and in terms of what's happened to the world and how much has changed, and even just in monster evolution, because there was a video I did a while back on I think it was Neckers, and basically they managed to evolve a little bit into the point where they were actually making cave paintings and that kind of thing, and they were becoming more than just being, well, mindless monsters. They were actually becoming intelligent, which was really cool because it adds so much depth into the game in terms of like actually making the world feel real, because of the fact that evolution exists inside of monster species is just a really wonderful touch to the entire thing. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video then please drop a like down below and stay subscribed because there's a lot more on its way. And thank you to all my Patreons for supporting me, and if you would like to support me then by all means please go over, check out my Patreon and see if I can convince you into buying me a cup of coffee or something along those lines. But even if you're just watching this video, then thank you so much, and until the next one, you'll go and have a very, very wonderful day. Odyssey.